The Raptors fall short in Indiana, 122-114. Welcome to Raptors Tonight. I'm Randy Urban, joined by Sherman Hamilton, Jack Armstrong, and Paul Jones. Sure, this was tough. In the last 5 minutes of the fourth, or in a 5-minute stretch there late, the Pacers went on a 17-6 run, which really steered the game in their favor. What do you think happened there?
Well, you could see that, Indiana's ability to make plays down the stretch really came through. And this is the same way the Raptors struggled in the fourth quarter against Indiana in their last meeting. The breakdown off the dribble, they got into the guts of the defense, and they assisted on 7 of their 10 made field goals in that fourth quarter because they got in there, they condensed the defense, they kick it out to wide open shooters who are making plays, or they dropped it off for easy dunks. And you could see in the third quarter, the Raptors got better in terms of protecting the dribble, protecting the paint. Then in the fourth quarter, they went away from it again. And this Indiana Pacer team deserves a lot of credit. They're tough, they're scrappy, they put a lot of pressure on you, especially in the open floor. They've got a very strong second unit. But you could see in the fourth quarter, the Raptors' inability, again, to keep the ball in front of them really impacted their confidence on the defensive end. And when you allow teams to score like that, you really got to make it up on the other end. And it was difficult for them to do that as well. So they just got caught again off the dribble, just constantly being pressured in their paint. And Indiana capitalized too many times.
Yeah, 62-42, Jack, points in the paint for Indiana. It's just about stopping the first line of defense there, or how do they correct that? Because that's an issue.
Well, some of it is matchups, right? And let's be real here. This was a heck of a game on a Monday night in early January. These two teams don't like each other. This was a playoff intensity, and Indiana can go, man. They're good. You know, forget about what they were picked in the preseason. This team, and Sherman, Jonesy, I think will agree with me, based upon the eye test, I'm watching this game tonight. I'm like, and I watched the first game they played as well. This is a really good team. I mean, I've had a chance to watch them a lot this season, and I really like what I see. And yeah, you know, absolutely, the containment of the dribble is a huge problem. But part of that is matchups, and part of that is winning matchups, or the other way, losing matchups. And some of that has to do with the fact that Indiana can just go, and they got guys on the perimeter that win their matchups and get the better of people off the bounce. And it's easy to talk schematics and coverages and this, that, the other thing. Bottom line is Indiana's got a good team.
Mm-hmm. And Jonesy, Benedict Mathurin, you know, he was outstanding in there in the second half. I thought he really controlled the game for the Pacers because he just kept drawing fouls. And that's what veteran guys do.
Yeah, he did. He had a great whistle going. But to Jack's point, you know, I look at Indiana and they kind of remind me of Toronto last year in a way. The expectations, and you're kind of putting your team together, and you think your roster's constructed pretty well, and you give it a chance and it comes together. Mathurin was terrific. But you know what? Tyrese Halliburton's an all-star. That guy, you know, tonight, 16, 6 and 8. He's already had 4 games this year with at least 15 points, 10 assists, and no turnovers. The record is 5 in a year by Mookie Blaylock. This guy's got 4. And, you know, he's good with the ball. He makes great decisions. He has that offense running well. And then, you know, Toronto just got handed their hats when you talk about the bench scoring, because Rick Carlisle has built a bench unit that is cohesive. They know their roles. They play together. And look, Toronto's not the only one to fall victim to that this year. Mathurin, but right away, you could tell Rick Carlisle knew he wasn't getting much out of Andrew Nembhard, or at least what he wanted. He went to TJ McConnell. 15 points off the bench for McConnell. You talk about the 21 from Mathurin. You know, Jalen Smith is rough and tumble in there for his slight figure. So, you know, their roster is constructed very well. The guys played their roles well, and they're a really good team.
Sure. I'm not one to blame games on the refs, and I'm certainly not doing that here. But when I looked at some of those calls, the technical foul on OG was really frustrating because it was so clear to me when you watch that he was just trying to catch him. And I thought Mathurin was the one that initiated the push there. And that bothered me. And then the Scotty charge bothered me too, because I just didn't think that the defender had any, sort of set position, or if he did, he got there super late when Scotty was already elevating there. How did you see those plays?
Well, I didn't like that, the call on OG. I didn't like that call. I thought, if anything, it was just a play on. Like, there's nothing to it. The contact was so minimal. Two teams, as Jack mentioned, that don't like each other. So that type of stuff to me is it has low impact on what's happening. So I didn't like that call. The call on Scotty, I mean, they looked at it. They took a look at it because it was challenged, and they still came out with they made the right decision. So I didn't like it, but they had a chance to look at it and they still feel it was the right decision. But those are two calls in the structure of a game that had a lot of ups and downs, and there was a lot of different scenarios that could have been mitigated by on-the-floor play by itself. So there's not very many games that I think the officials have done a very good job in completely. But I will say that I didn't like that call against OG. And even though I didn't like the call against Scotty, they have their center in Secaucus that's going to look at this, and minds and eyes that are more gauged towards figuring out the rules of the NBA looked at it and they still felt it was a charge. So what can you say about that?
Right? Amazingly, they were still wrong.
Can I jump in, Randall? And I'll say this. Referees are human beings. Sherm's coached, Jack's coached, I've coached.
I'm a coach, but thank you.
When you are in that position and you feel you've been getting a bad whistle, and you voice that, when that play goes to replay, I find it very difficult that egos would settle to a level and say, you know what, you are finally right. We got that one wrong. I just think, like, my own feeling is, it's like when you send a kid to the principal's office and you're the teacher and you've been hassling with the kid and you finally say, get out of here and go to the principal's office. Well, now the principal's going to decide. Mm-hmm. Right? You have nothing to do with it. So when it goes to replay, for me, I think you try and take the egos out of it and minimize the discussion between the replay center and the people in the building, and let them decide as kind of, like an arbitration in baseball. It's A or it's B. We're not going to talk with side A before we make the decision that impacts A and B. So I just didn't think the egos would let them do that, especially the way, to your point, Randall, the whistle was going tonight. Now, to Sherm's point, they outscored you by 20 in the paint. Mm-hmm. They outscored you by, like, whatever it was, 50 whatever to single digits on the bench. It was 60. What was it? 54-7 on the bench. To Sherm's point, those are plays that you can take care of in the game, aside from what the officials called.
Yeah. So, Jack, then what do you do? Because, you preach defense, and Coach Nick Nurse said, the one thing that he wanted to focus on these 2 days was their effort. And you still give up over 120 points. And I know Indiana is a high scoring team. They're a great scoring team, but you can't come out there and give up more than their season average.
Well, again, you could talk about it. It's one thing. And you could demand effort. I don't think it's lack of effort. I watched the game. Sherman watched the game. Jonesy watched the game. Bottom line is, Indiana won the matchups. Yeah. To my first point tonight, do you think the Raptors were not trying to stop those guys? They couldn't win the matchup. And therefore, now you got to send help. Your paint is compromised. Everyone's flying around. The ball's flying around, and you're in big trouble. So in no way, shape, or form do I think that there was any issue with effort. It had nothing to do with it. It had everything to do with the fact that, bottom line, if I have to guard Sherm, I'm losing that matchup a lot, every time, pretty much. 99 times out of 100, probably 100 times out of 100. But the bottom line is, I'm trying like crazy. I'm in my stance. I'm doing everything I can. The difference is, he's next level. Well, he's actually 3 levels better than me. but I'm joking, but I'm making a point, and that is, there comes a point where it's not effort. It comes a point where it just comes down to the fact that the other guy's a little better.
Mm-hmm. So then what do you do, Sherm? What do you do here? Because you got another game, a tough game against Milwaukee on Wednesday, and it is getting to the halfway point. There has to be a move made at some point for the Raptors in terms of making a push for stringing some wins together.
Well, it's all about what the goals are, what the management sees as realistic projections for the rest of the season and moving forward. So, everyone can sit here and say, yeah, go bring somebody in or make that move that makes this team that much better. First of all, what is that move? Second of all, does it work financially and cap-wise and with everything that's involved in a trade? And third of all, is it the time to make that move in terms of the franchise's short-term and long-term objectives? So a lot of moving parts. And I think that this team has to look at it internally from the perspective of, this is what we have right now. How can we make this better? How can we optimize and get the most out of what we have? And health has been a big issue. They got a couple of guys back today. I still don't think Fred looked 100%. I didn't think he was moving the way that we're used to seeing him move. It was good to see Precious back finally, but they've got to figure out a way, and it's going to be partly scheming. It's going to be partly what happens on the floor. But to be a team that they know they can compete at a high level, can they do it consistently? We have yet to see, but there's no question that they're going to have to figure out how to do it with this group until management says, hey, we're changing the dynamics of what we have on this roster.
Yeah, and for the record, I meant make a move up the standings, not necessarily, make a trade or something like that. I just, I felt like, Coach Nurse is talking to them, Fred's talking to the team, and then, you still come out and give up that many points. And like Jack said, the other team just played better. But, I struggle to think that Jonesy, that they're necessarily just a better team than the Raptors. I just don't think that,
Well, they're better tonight, Randall. And that's the bottom line on it. Look, I think, the Raptors always talk about sticking to their core principles. And that's, to Sherm's point, I think that's what you judge to see if there's improvements being made. And how much did last year's ascension, where nobody had the Raptors even in the play-in, how much does that impact the timeline and the expectations? So those are things that you have to consider. Look, the other part of it is the Raptors were 23 and 23, or 21 and 21 last year at one point, or they were just around 500, 23 and 23 before they won 2 out of every 3 games coming home. So I wouldn't say that there's a lot of time left, but there's time. And you also have to, get people back healthy, fit them back into roles, kind of put this thing back together. And then just see what happens. If you're going to make a move, you have to consider, the long term. This is not, we're making a move because we're looking for one more piece or so to be a championship team. Hey, 2 years ago, they were in the lottery. So you have to kind of weigh things the right way.
Mm-hmm. Jack, we'll get out on this.
Just two quick things.
Sure.
2 quick things. Miles Turner, just a few weeks ago, he was talking about leaving and going playing for the Lakers. Are you nuts?
No.
Seriously, are you nuts?
Yeah.
He's in the right place. And I think he's quieted down now because he knows that. And number 2, to Jonesy's point, the Raptors were in the lottery 2 years ago. They had a great season a year ago. They still have a lot of things that they need to get better at. When you play good competition, you find that out. And as much as, Randy, you don't think the Raptors, the Raptors should beat Indiana, you look at Indiana, forget about what's on paper, what they were predicted in the preseason. I'm telling you, I'm watching these guys, and I've watched them a lot this year. They're a good team. They got a good young team. And this was a heck of a game, hard-fought, competitive game. And, hey, you just got beat. But to me, the Raptors, their challenge right now is perimeter play and being able to match up on the perimeter. And right now, that's a problem.
Mm-hmm. Well, one of the guys, Sherman, that was great tonight, and he's been great the last 4, Gary Trent Jr. What are you seeing from him the last 4?
He's in a great rhythm. He's very aggressive offensively. I like the fact that he catches the ball and he's being decisive. He knows if it's just a catch and shoot, he's ready to let it fly. He's putting it on the floor. He's finding those soft spots in the defense, and he's elevating to make that shot. And he's also getting out in transition, and he's finishing at the bucket. So he's got all three levels going. And I just like the fact that, you know, when you're talking about a guy who can just change the dynamic of your offense, Gary's proven to be that. And over the last 4 games, he's been phenomenal, shooting 50% from the three-point line. But he's playing over 35 minutes. So what you're seeing is the more minutes he's being given right now is the better he's playing. But you figure if he's not playing this way, what would the Raptors have done in this game? They needed his scoring. They needed his production to be in this game. So it's good to see him get it going. You know, Pascal's doing his thing. Scotty clearly wasn't looking to score as much based on whatever was happening with his hand. But I thought that if they could have gotten another piece going offensively in this game, it could have been a different result. But Gary, he's been phenomenal. He's been doing it consistently, and he's been aggressive. And I like his demeanor, his disposition offensively. It's about putting that thing in the bucket.
Mm-hmm. All right, guys, going to stop it there. Next up, the Raptors begin a 6-game homestand on Wednesday when they host the Milwaukee Bucks. Tip-off goes at 7:30 p.m. Eastern. And don't forget to come by Real Sports after the game. We'll be there streaming live on YouTube and taking your questions and comments as well. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.